Hey everyone, it's Haley Clover, your host, and this is another episode of CMO Weekly, brought to you by our sponsor, Open Fortune. Open Fortune has changed marketing forever by putting ads into fortune cookies that are distributed through 100,000 restaurants in 30 countries worldwide. In a world where consumers are seeing 3,000 to 5,000 ads a day, Open Fortune is helping your brand surprise and delight consumers while breaking through the noise. So thank you to Open Fortune for making this episode happen. Okay, my guest today is somebody who knows how to take a brand from okay to absolutely unforgettable. Doug Zarkin is the Chief Brand Officer at Good Feet Holdings, and before that, he led massive rebrand of Pearle Vision, turning it from a discount optical chain into a care-first, customer-loved brand that even became a Harvard Business School case study. He's also helped brands like Victoria's Secret Pink turn into a powerhouse name, pick up a ton of industry awards, and he literally wrote the book on how to make your brand more lovable. It's called Moving Your Brand Out of the Friend Zone. I'm excited to chat about that even more. Doug is all about creating emotional connections between people and the brands they choose, and today he's going to tell us how it's done. So Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to dive into everything about your book, and we'll definitely talk about that more. But I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you even got into this industry. How did you get started, and how did you find yourself where you are today?
So coming out of graduate school, I knew that I had a passion for branding, marketing, building businesses and building brands. It was something that I kind of clued in on as I was getting my MBA, that this is really what I wanted to do with my life. And like many graduate school graduates with aspirations, there isn't a map. You know, this was a land before LinkedIn. And so the best advice that I got was from a family friend who said, look, if you want to eventually get in the front car, if you really want to be driving the train, get in it and get on at the back. Work your way to the front. Not only will you understand all the roles and functions that go into building a business, you'll speak the language. And more importantly, when you're in the front of the train, you'll understand how to motivate anybody who is in one of those seats. And so my first career was in the agency world. 11 years, spent the bulk of it at Gray Advertising. Started their youth and entertainment division, where I had the chance to work on amazing businesses like Reebok, Konami Video Games, CoverGirl, W Hotels, and then moved to the client side to become part of a new business unit for Avon products. You're talking to one of the few men that can proudly say that he was an Avon lady, and can today still sell the hell out of a lip gloss. From there, moved into fashion, a little bit more of the fashion side at Victoria's Secret Pink as their head of marketing. Spent a few more years in the wholesale fashion world. And then the bulk of my client side career, in-house career, was at EssilorLuxottica, leading the brand rejuvenation of Pearle Vision, an iconic brand that really had lost its way in the sense that it was really looking for a place in a very crowded, commoditized category. And over the course of 11 years, 2 5-year plans, was able to help transform that business and sort of bring it back to life, not only in the hearts and minds of our franchisees, but most importantly in the consumers that were in desperate need of eye care and eyewear services.
I have to tell you, with Victoria's Secret Pink, it's a brand close to my heart because I had an awesome internship with them. I was a campus rep, which I don't know if you were there when they kind of started that program. But when I was in college, over a decade ago, it was one of the first internships that I had, and it was such a cool experience and a cool brand to work with.
Yeah, I mean, Pink was one of the first businesses that I had the pleasure of being a part of that really prioritized community. We did that at Avon when we created the Mark brand, which was the makeup you could buy and sell. And part of the remit there was not only bring in a new, younger, more upscale consumer buyer, but also to create a representative force of, at that time, we made the decision of college age girls. And we went out to the top 50 campuses by female population and recruited what I guess now you would call influencers.
Yeah.
You know, young ladies that were part of sororities, sports teams, active in college government, and really empowered them to start their own business, obviously under the auspices of the proven direct selling model that Avon had. And when we scaled that business to about 118 million in the first 18 months, what we learned was, I think, the importance of community, the importance of what today is now known as reputation management. You know, the most powerful marketing tool that a marketer has in its toolbox, besides their frontline associates, is their reputation, is word of mouth. And so how do you leverage that? You leverage that through community and being really on top of the realities of what your consumers are experiencing with your brand. Your reviews and ratings may not be the actuality of what happened, but unfortunately, as I talk about in my book, it's the realities. And if you're not taking advantage of it, it becomes reputation management, whereas I believe it can become reputation commerce.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and you talk a lot about, so in your book, moving your brand out of the friend zone, and congratulations, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. You talk a lot about advocating for emotional, what we would call, or what you would call, thinking human marketing.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what that means a bit more?
Sure. So when we talk about relationships, we naturally go to our personal lives, and you know, all of us are fortunate, or we should be fortunate in life, to have somebody that we call a best friend. And what makes that best friend your best friend? It's the way they react to your needs. It's the way they anticipate them. It's the way they know you. It's the way they prioritize you. Now imagine a world where every friend you had treated you as if you were their best friend. Just kind of get like the goosies for a second. Let that sink in. Now let's go to business. Imagine if you built a business ecosystem that treated every customer that walked in your door or visited your website or called your customer service line or went to your store as if they were the only customer that you had. What would you do? How would you treat them? That is the premise of thinking human. And what's exciting about that is it frees you up to think about what is possible versus what is impossible.
Yeah. And it feels like, thinking human, it almost feels like that should be our everyday standard, like how we are treating people. But obviously that's, not always the case. So how do you get a team, I guess, to do that? When you've obviously been in a position where you're managing a lot of people, how do you enact that kind of human first marketing?
It's a great question. It starts honestly with a belief system, and that belief system has to begin at the C-suite level. Because if your CEO, your CMO, your CBO, your CFO, your COO, if your leadership doesn't embody the principle, it's really hard for that to take hold downstream. At the same time, you really want to have, the sandwich effect. It's got to be embodied by your frontline associates who are three-dimensional representations of your brand. It's got to be evangelized by your leadership team to help you make decisions. And everybody in the middle is going to kind of drink that Kool-Aid, needs to drink that Kool-Aid, and recognize that each customer, and I talk about this in the book, each customer that you meet with, even the three of us that are on this podcast today, we all have a movie that's going on in our head because we're all human beings. It could be a tragedy. It could be a love story. It could be a comedy. As the parent of a 17-year-old who's graduating high school tomorrow, in my case, it's a drama, action, adventure, horror film, depending on the time of day. And if we recognize that, then things such as customer service get erased and it becomes customer relationship management. Why we call it customer service is because in the US, we think about it as triage. We think about it as let's get them in, get them out, and move on. I had the pleasure of living in Japan for a period of time. And in Japanese culture, business culture, customer service that we think about begins when the transaction happens. It's not the end of the relationship. They use business card exchange, wrapping packages. That conversation is an opportunity to strengthen the relationship between you, the brand, and that consumer. And that's a mindset shift. When we're building a warranty policy, if your warranty is a year And at a year and a month, somebody calls you and it's like, listen, my computer broke or my headphones broke. What happens is the customer service person goes to page 74 of the manual and says, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. But understand the person on the other end of the phone doesn't give a shit about what the manual says. They spent $350 on your headphones and they should last for more than a year. And so how do you treat them? You obviously need to have principles. Okay. If someone's dog ate their headphones or they stepped on it. Okay. But if it stopped working, say, listen, I'm going to send you a shipping label. Send it to me. If it's a manufacturer's defect, I know our warranty says a year. Let me see what I can do. Maybe I can send you a refurbished model. Maybe I can give you 50% off a new pair. The idea of it's no isn't thinking human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's that empathy that is so incredibly important that we need to embody. That's a mindset shift. That's a real mindset shift. And it's terrifying, or it's terrifyingly exciting. Because one of the dumbest, and I use this phrase purposely, dumbest things that marketers and brand leaders do is they don't prioritize their existing consumer base.
Yeah.
A Harvard study said that it's 5 to 20 times more expensive to bring in somebody new than to keep somebody. And so why is it, to go on this tangent for a second, I apologize, Haley, you asked me one question, I'm giving you 12 answers.
Please, it's great.
Why is it that the best offers are for new people? Your cell phone, right? Your satellite radio. Why is it that somebody new gets a better deal than somebody existing?
For real.
Somebody existing is somebody that should be rewarded for their loyalty.
I can see Carlos shaking his head up there like he agrees adamantly.
It drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely crazy. It's funny, as Doug has been talking, I've experienced a microwave that I bought 15 months ago that the manufacturer's warranty is out by 3 months, and I was dealing with it. I've been dealing with new shift in cell phones and being like, why am I getting smoked on my plan when I see this as a better deal? If I just cancel and come back in a year from now, I'll be better off. So yeah, right. It's a really valid point.
It is at the heart of really what it is to have a great relationship with your customer base.
Was there a time when this mindset shifted for you, or is that something that you've always had?
Literally, that was my next question. That's funny that you brought it up. That was my question.
Or is there like a light bulb moment where you're like, oh my God, this is it. If I just do this, this makes so much sense.
Yeah, like did you always have that in the back of your head?
No, I think when I went client side, to be honest with you, when I went in-house, is when I realized that we had to be thinking, when we launched the new business for Avon, one of the things that I got so much from my time in the field was that personal connection that an Avon representative earned with their buyer. And I also watched that the dynamic between that relationship was not transactional. It resulted in a transaction, but it was so much more than that. It was really special. And look, the most important people that marketers have in building plans is operations. Marketing without ops is nothing more than just words on paper or pretty pictures or half-baked strategies. Mm-hmm. Operations taught me so much, and it continues to teach me so much as I learn to build marketing strategies and as I look to build business strategies that grow the reputation and the posture of our brands in the mind and hearts and wallets of our target audiences. There has to be gravitas. There has to be gravitas.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Avon, even just remembering when I was, of age to start wearing makeup, and my mom had definitely purchased Avon, it was all about, like you kind of said in the beginning, a community aspect to Avon, and, add the storytelling to that it was a home run. And then mix in the fact that once Avon got somebody in there, I didn't know many people that then stopped using their products. So the retention of those folks was huge as well. It was like, you had a good product. We were excited to have you in there as part of the community. And now some of the women I know are still using the exact same, to your point, lip gloss that they've used for years.
It is easy to say to do it. It is really hard to do it. And like anybody watching this, it's like, this guy's a jerk because he's talking ethereal. I'm not. I'm really not. And I'm not saying you go from zero to what I call brand love immediately. But it's different steps. It's empowering your frontline associates, whether that's customer service on the phone or people working in your store, to be the heroes of your brand. You want to position your brand as hero in the mindset of your consumer when they're in that emotional decision state, which happens before the rational choice. But if you can position your associates as heroes of your brand and empower them to deliver the most amazing information is connected when they're connecting with a consumer, great things can happen.
I have one comment and kind of another question. So one, this feels tangential to the 10-star experience by Airbnb, right? Like, think outside the box of everything we could possibly do to create that 10-star experience. And you're doing it not for a process within the product, but more for the overall experience after the transaction happens, right? And how do you market to those folks? Is there, in your mind, a stark difference between, the Airbnb 10-star experience concept and your experience on brand love?
Not really. I mean, except for the fact that the Airbnb experience is more akin to a hotel stay. Mm-hmm. So there's duration, right? There's right. I think the 10-star experience is more in line with the way the Ritz-Carlton prioritizes the empowerment of their associates by giving them, I think it's $2,000. It was $1,500 at one point, and I talk about this in the book, to right a wrong, to take advantage of an opportunity to bring joy and make that customer experience in their property amazing. And they can do that without anybody approving it. Mm-hmm. In retail or an e-com transaction, it's a moment in time. Right. It starts with the greeting. That first 5 seconds you come over the threshold. Hey, thanks for coming in. How can I help you? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it translates to, do you sell them the most expensive or do you sell them the best option? At Pearle, we developed something called the neighborhood eye care experience. And it was really grounded in getting to know the person behind the eyes. So I wear glasses. I wear them to drive. I wear them to play sports. And so I'd be a perfect person for what they call a photochromic lens. It goes from clear to sun. All right. I wouldn't be the perfect person right now based on my prescription for a progressive lens because I use it pretty one-dimensionally. If you're somebody who wears glasses 24/7, you may be the right person for a progressive lens that gives you the distance adjustment for reading as well as for driving or seeing your TV, et cetera. Feeling out not just the medical need, but also the lifestyle need is at the heart of really thinking about that person as a person, not a transaction. And again, how do you find those small moments of surprise and delight? One thing I talk about in the book is my neighborhood diner. So I live here in Long Island. Diner culture is a big deal. Ever since, my kids were small, we've been going to this diner. And when they were little, there were the four of us, because I have two kids, they would always sit us at a table for six. And I remember a year in, I finally said to the waiter, I'm like, Tony, why do you always put us at a bigger table? And he's like, because you got a lot of stuff. He's like, and I want you to be comfortable. And I was like, but aren't I killing your ability? I mean, I know how the food service industry works. Table for six is a bigger check than four. He goes, yeah, but I want you to be happy because you're going to come back. And he's damn right. I go there once a week. I bring in from there probably once a week. It's my go-to place. It's those small moments. It's somebody opening a register because there's a large line. Okay. It's, hey, listen, I don't have your pant size. I have it in a size bigger. What I'm going to do is we're going to take care of the tailoring because we really want to make sure that you're taken care of. Things like that. It's not grand gestures. It's small moment. Trust is earned in a series of small moments.
Agreed.
And that's how you start to create brand love.
One more question, and Haley, I promise I'll shut up here. I'm just curious. You talked about how you have to get the associate level to drink the Kool-Aid. You have to make them feel that they want to evangelize as much as it's coming from the top. How do you do that? How do you motivate the people that are representing your brand from the start of the transaction where they care enough to represent the brand in the way that, let's say, the exec team needs and wants?
Oh, that's such a good question. Look, in business, because you can measure something doesn't make it meaningful. Here, it is about measurement. Make star ratings, reviews, a KPI. So you could have a target for a salesperson to be average dollar, but at the same thing, you want to have it as a percentage of transactions where somebody leaves you a review. And then you give them a boost based on the review quality itself. And that's not about incentivizing a customer to give you a good review. That's about being reflective. Hey, listen, one of the questions I get is, how do I ask somebody for a review? You just ask them. Hey, listen, if we've delivered great service, if you would take a minute, it would mean a lot to the team and a lot to me if you would give us a review. You don't have to do it right this second, but if you would, that'd be great. It's something that I take very seriously as I've helped you, and I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job I can with the next person who walks in. Make it something that is, in baseball, you have a batting average, right? You have an on-base percentage. You have all these core metrics that give you a sense of whether or not you're winning within the team winning. Now, in business, we have those too, but we tend to focus on the macro measurements, not the micro measurements. And again, if you can have those small moments, it's like sum of marginal gains. If I have sales associates that aren't really good at closing, but the ones that they close, everyone's giving them a 4.9 or above, I can then pair them with somebody who's a great closer and has a great review. I could also have somebody who's an amazing top selling rep, but who has like a 3.7 star score because they try to sell you whatever they're selling you, like a used car dealer. That allows you as a leader to click in and figure out where you need to optimize. And the power of data, and I have said this, and it's sort of like the clickbait, data doesn't make decisions for the modern day marketer. Marketers make decisions using data because data is only as good as the questions you ask. So it's important that the whole statement's out there. The reason why, to understand what to measure, you have to understand what to ask to measure. And then how do you measure it? What's the question you're asking? We spend a lot of time in brand and marketing and in business looking at reports. It's, yesterday was 98 degrees here in New York. I could ask you a question so that the response you would have given me was that it was cold outside by the way that I framed the question. And so we've got to be really good. We've got to spend more time as leaders thinking about the way we ask questions and what questions to ask versus just looking at data. Because you can make data say whatever you want.
That's true. So how do you balance that, all of those metrics that you have, and then the creativity that the team has? How do you make those decisions?
Oh, boy. It's art and science. I mean, there is no playbook. There's no playbook, but there's a notebook. And the notebook starts with getting in to understand your business. Being an Avon lady was by choice because I needed to understand that business model from the inside out. Working at Victoria's Secret was by choice because I needed to understand the category a little bit more. Becoming an optician was important to understand how we found somebody that perfect pair. And so you've got to take the steps to get under the hood of your business to really then figure out, what do I need to measure? And then open yourself up to be curious and vulnerable. Part of that gut feel, we can train our guts. It's like working out at the gym. You can train your gut to know if something is right or wrong by the more time you spend working on it.
That's so true. Did you have a moment where, with any of these companies that you've worked at, where that did click for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I had the privilege of spending 11 years of my professional career at Pearle Vision as part of EssilorLuxottica. And within that model, which was heavily franchised, there were some franchisees that were hired by Dr. Stanley Pearle himself, who started the business in 1961 and passed away in early 2000s. And I got, intellectually slapped around early in my tenure because the franchisees that were doing it really well wanted me to appreciate the secret sauce. They were committed to the transformation that I was brought in to lead. They were tired of buy one, get one free as the modus operandi for converting. They wanted to elevate the quality of care. And so they were completely on Team Doug about, hey, look, we've got to move from where we are to where we're going. But they wanted to be very clear as to where we are, the good things. And for me, it was wonderful. It was really what my head of operations called intellectual honesty. It was really great to get that gut punch and say, listen, this is what we're about at our best day. And then I got to see what we were at our worst day. And it was figuring out how to impact the middle that allowed us to deliver, double-digit operating income increases for 8 consecutive years, become one of the top franchise brands on Franchise 500, and more importantly, become the number one brand for quality of care in the category. But it started with the emanation of what are our values as a brand, and are we living those values?
Yeah, and I know that you talk a lot about that in your book too. Where can people find your book? One, for those that are listening and are like, oh my God, I need more of these tips. And then 2, tell me a little bit about why you wanted to write that book in general. Why was it important to you to kind of share all of this information that you've learned over your career?
Haley, I love you for the selfless plug. I appreciate that. You can find my book on Amazon in paperback or Kindle. I am not doing an audiobook. As my wife says, Doug, if somebody has to listen to your voice for 6 hours, you're asking a lot. She's been married to me for 22 years, so I take that very seriously. But it's on Kindle and paperback. And you can find more about me just as a person on my website, dougzarkin.com. Why did I write the book? It's really simple. I didn't begin my career this way, but as I moved up in the agency world and eventually in-house on the client side, I realized that I love to teach. And it's not just about leadership. I just love to kind of see somebody unlock that inner marketing superhero. And many times it's just about kind of finding the courage to put on the cape and fly. Other times it's about providing them skills, that real-time feedback. And when you are in a multi-unit system, you find yourself always presenting. You always find yourself always sharing. And I had a franchisee say to me probably in year 3, Doug, you tend to do the same, explain it the same way. Sorry if you can hear my dogs going crazy.
You're fine.
In the background. And I wanted to really begin to learn how to impact the lives of more than just the people on my team. And so somebody said to me, one of my franchisees said, you should really write a book, get this all down on paper, Dougisms, as they like to call. And it was pretty good. It was a pretty good experience for somebody who can't spell. It was pretty exciting.
That's so funny. I also am not a good speller, so I really appreciate that. It gives me hope that maybe one day I could write a book. I think it's really important because, there's quite honestly, there are a lot of ways to do one job, right? But to be able to take someone who's been successful with multiple brands and get their perspective and their teachings from it in an easy to digest way is really amazing, especially, some of our listeners are early in their marketing career. And so it
is the perfect read. First of all, it's summertime. It's actually the ideal weight and thickness to hold a towel on a lounge chair if you're trying to reserve chairs. So if for no other reason than that annoying, I want to reserve chairs at the beach or the pool, it's perfect. I mean, perfect weight. The towel will not move. I promise you that. But for somebody earlier in their, what would you say? I should market it that way.
Amazing marketing for the book.
The book may be a turd, but hey, it holds a beach towel better than anything.
And that's important.
And that is important. It is considered, I wrote it as a guidebook, not a manual, because there is no right way or wrong way. A guide is a journey. And this gives you anchor points along the way to think about things in a certain context. And for somebody who's young in their career or kind of looking to accelerate their growth, if you can benefit from the experiences that I've had, good, bad, and indifferent, awesome. Awesome. I've made a ton of mistakes in my career, and I outline them in the book. But more importantly, what I tried to really do is to take all the things I learned from people that I admired and all the things I learned from people I didn't admire and figure out nuggets. Because you learn as much about the person you want to be from working for people that you don't like and don't respect as you do from people that you do like and do respect. And that's kind of what the book is. It's as much about how do you build a brand, and then you can really think about it as how do you build your personal brand.
I love that. I was just going to say it's the human approach to being a human and also the human approach to marketing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of that insight into, your career and what you've done. I have a couple of quick, just rapid fire marketing questions for you, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'll give you your day back and you can go enjoy the crazy heat that you're all getting.
We've had technical difficulties and dogs barking. So we should apologize first and foremost to anybody on the pod that's listening. Sorry, guys. That's what it is to do these kind of things unless you're in studio.
Today's episode is all about the human experience anyway. Yep. So here it is.
All right.
Okay. I want to know, do you have a guilty pleasure brand? Is there a brand that you secretly love? Guilty or otherwise. It doesn't have to be guilty, I guess.
That's such a fantastic question.
Thank you.
That's such a fantastic question. I don't have an answer because I don't think there's a brand that I love that I'm embarrassed about.
That's good. What's a brand that you're just like absolutely loving right now, whether it's because you personally love to use it or you just love their marketing?
Actually, I'll give you one. I just thought of it because that's such a provocative question in that makes you think. What are my guilty pleasures? I'm a big fan of salon pause patches.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty active tennis player, and when you reach my age, you get a little creaky, and so as opposed to downing 6 Tylenol. You throw one of these puppies on, doesn't smell too bad, and it actually pretty much works. So Salon Pause, looking for an NIL deal, hook me up. I can be your poster child.
I love that. And there's nothing, that needs to be secret about that. It's a good product.
Moving your brand out of the friend zone, brought to you by Salon Pause.
Yeah.
You thought it was painful reading the book? No.
That's your number?
There you go.
That's amazing. Okay, if you had to give us a campaign that still kind of gives you goosebumps that you think about throughout your career, what campaign would that be?
One of my campaigns or a campaign period?
Up to you. Whatever gives you goosebumps.
I would say I go back to when we launched the Mark brand, the whole notion of meet Mark, which was kind of like not Mark a person, but Mark an experience. I had a chance to work with the brilliant agency Wieden & Kennedy back in the day when Wieden & Kennedy New York was Wieden & Kennedy New York. And that brand campaign for me is something that I still have in one of my share drives somewhere. And I look at every once in a while to remind me of the journey that I started. That was the first client-side brand campaign that I led as a head of marketing. And I remember being on set and sitting in the director's chairs. And I remember calling my wife and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. Because I had always been on the agency side. And, her advice was fake it till you make it. So I had great creative partners and it was, award winning. And more importantly, it really got that business on the map. So that's something that I will always fondly look back on.
That's awesome. What's a marketing strategy that you think is completely outdated in 2025?
This one's going to be controversial. I think a blind influencer strategy is completely outdated, because an influencer strategy in isolation is missing the whole point of what an influencer strategy is. An influencer strategy is another form of storytelling. And so you really need to think about influencer marketing not as the bottom of the funnel, but importantly, part of your overall marketing stack. When it's treated separately as just a pure influencer strategy, you're going to fail.
I get that. Okay, that's good advice. And speaking of advice, what's the best marketing advice that someone's ever given you that's kind of followed you now along your journey and maybe into your book even?
Yeah. I think it can be epitomized in a really famous quote. And I had the privilege of working for 7 years at Gray and eventually starting our Gee Whiz, which was the youth entertainment and lifestyle division, with somebody who I still call a mentor. And I don't talk to her very often, but she's still very special in my life. And you can learn more about her in the book because she's in there. The quote she said to me once was, "Doug, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking." And it's a quote from General George Patton. And that inspires me every day to really think differently. Look at how the points come together and ask yourself, what am I missing? You know, we talk a lot about thinking outside the box. That's nonsense. Think about what's going on inside the box and rearrange it. You know, you don't need a bigger suitcase. You just need how to figure out how to pack things a little differently. Start there. I think it's more respectful of where you are as a brand to look at the box that you have of tools and figure out what can they build versus running out and getting more tools. Spoken as somebody who, if it doesn't plug in with a USB port, useless. I love the notion of thinking inside the box first. And then you look and say, what am I missing?
I love that. That's really good advice. You crushed it. That's all I've got for you.
I appreciate you guys. What you're doing is providing nuggets to people who should take one or two of them with the other nuggets and figure out how they want to create their own journey. Anybody who tells you this is the way to do something is full of it. And I would especially tell you, if you do take the journey and read the book, it is not going to tell you how to do things. It is going to give you things and provocations to work into your journey. Because again, it's your way. If I could go back 10 years, I would tell myself, Doug, stop stressing out about worrying about what the right way and the wrong way is. Just focus on delivering it your way, a way. I would have saved myself a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can never do it. You are the only one that can do it like you. So why not,
For better or worse. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this wraps up another episode of CMO Weekly, where marketing leaders are keeping it real like we did today. If you got something out of today's conversation, please share it with a teammate, drop us a review, or hit follow so that you're never missing an episode. And we will be back next week with more stories, strategies, and surprises from the minds that are shaping modern marketing. Another big thank you to Open Fortune for making this episode possible, and we will see you all soon. Thanks so much again, Doug.
Thank you.